Welcome to Wine, Women, and Writing, everyone. I'm Pamela Fagan Hutchins, and I have no wine, women, and writing for you today. Instead, I've got Mescal Men Mystery, shall we say, as we're going to jump out of our talking about female characterization mode and go all thriller all the time with Reavis Wortham here in a moment. We're still going to probably have a little oversharing, a little irreverence, maybe some profanity, barking dogs, I don't know. So it'll be a normal show in those respects. If you want to catch past episodes, go out to my website, PamelaFaganHutchins.com. You can see past episodes. You can also see upcoming episodes so you can read along. I hope you've read HAWKE'S in preparation for today. And I also hope you managed to snag the short-term deal on Livewire, the trilogy lead for my Maggie books right now, so that you can run the table and get up to dead pile with the rest of us. So with no further ado, I want to welcome a very patient man, Reavis Wortham, to the show. Welcome, Reavis.
Well, good morning. Thanks for inviting me. And technology defeats us all, and I'm the world's worst at it. And you'll know that when you read my Sonny Hawke book. Sonny has all kinds of trouble with technology, and the reality bleeds over into fiction.
Well, for those of you that are now dying with curiosity, we've had all kinds of technical problems getting here, and right now I've got, in May, 9 inches of snow falling outside our mountain cabin, but we still are soldiering on and have great connection. And part of our problem, I think, had to do with an orange, something about an orange in a destroyed laptop.
Well, it wasn't a whole orange. It was one little bite of a slice. I was working. My wife handed me a bite, and I chomped into it, and one drop shot out, hit the finger pad, and went down inside the little seam and fried the whole thing. So I had to carry it in and get it repaired, but we got it back, and they didn't have to replace the computer, and that's a good thing because everything that was on there would have been lost, I'm afraid.
Oh, that would have been bad. Are you in the middle of working on a new Sonny Hawke book for us?
Oh, I am. I'm on the downhill slide. I'm at the tail end of the third act, so I should finish at the end of this month. And when you hit the climax, it all starts moving really fast. And I back up all the time because I lost an entire novel once after I completed it. So I back up regularly. I wasn't going to lose the work, but I was going to lose all the stuff that I had saved on the desktop.
That's like a writer's worst nightmare. I email to myself like a million times a day. That's so that it's constantly going to, not even to a cloud, but to my email account, sent and received.
Exactly.
I've only lost 100 pages at a time, but it's such a gut punch. It's the worst.
Well, the other thing you don't want to do is one time I was doing the same. I still do the same thing. I send myself emails with the manuscript at that point. But once when I had moved it around, I needed to go back and get working the next day. Well, I pulled up a version like a week or two earlier. And so I'm working along, and all of a sudden I said, well, this doesn't make sense. And then I realized all those changes that I'd made for an entire day were on the wrong manuscript. So then you print that off, and then you go back and try to find out where you'd gone wrong. If it can happen, I think it has happened to me.
So what I'm hearing is you're not an IT guy. You're not a computer guru.
Oh, absolutely not. Give me a hammer and a saw, and I'm fine. But don't give me technology because I'm not good with it.
Oh man, that's bad. Well, so when I do these shows, I was telling you, it's a lot like Pamela's personal book club. And if you've ever been associated with a book club, they're basically drinking clubs. So if in fact it were an okay time of day, I'd probably be having something from Cultisca Distillery. What about you, Reavis? Have you ever been in a drinking club before?
Well, I have been in a drinking club. It's called being an author. And that's what so many of us do. I tell everyone, if you want to be an author, if you want to meet one, go to a conference and then go sit down at the bar, because everybody's going to come, whether they drink or not, they're going to come through the bar. So, I'm at home with book clubs and with groups of writers.
Absolutely. That's the truth. What would Sonny Hawke be drinking? I'm trying to remember from Hawke's. We didn't really get to see any drinking in Hawke's War because pretty much it was trouble from Sonny from page 1 till the end.
It's always trouble for Sonny. He's a trouble magnet, and he can't help himself. He's also impulsive, which causes other problems. You know, if you're a Texas Ranger and you're dealing with things, impulsiveness gets you in trouble. But Sonny's he's a coffee drinker. The first book, Hawke's Prey, we meet the whole crew at the local cafe, and they're drinking coffee, and I drink coffee to excess in the mornings, and then it's iced tea in the afternoons or something else until the evenings.
Yeah, I tend to be coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon. Although today started really early. I was so excited to get up and watch the May snow falling, praying, of course, that the weatherman was wrong, that I've been drinking coffee since 4 a.m. So now, this is not your first series. Your first series, the Red River Mysteries, and now the Sonny Hawke thrillers. What it caused you to add Sonny Hawke to your repertoire, to your library of books? How'd that come about?
As you said, I've been writing the Red River books since 2011, and they were doing well, but I was with a small press. I'm still with them, Poison Pen Press out of Scottsdale. They gave me a series that got me started, but they also admitted they couldn't get me out to the market the way a bigger publisher could. And so I was talking to my agent up in New York, and she suggested that I write a new series and create a new character. And speaking of Craig Johnson, that's the funny thing. I was up in Colorado Springs about that time, and it was one of those nights up there. It was snowing. It was in the spring at a convention, and I'm in the bar area. Of course, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. By that time, they had taken the bar away from us. We were just all sitting in a circle talking, and Craig Johnson was there. Lou Diamond Phillips was there. Jeffrey Deaver, John Gilstrap, my running buddy, and Sandra Brannon. I don't know if you know Sandra. She's a wonderful author. We're all sitting around just talking, and I was trying to come up with an idea, and I had one, and I threw it out to the group, and they all said it was a brilliant idea. It was wonderful. Go write that. Well, the next week I come home and I call my agent, and she says, okay, pitch me your story idea. And I pitched her that idea that Craig and everybody else liked. And she said, no, that's not going to work. Give me another idea. Well, I really didn't have one, but I had something in the back of my mind. So I threw that out at her, and she goes, oh, Rev, that's not good either. She goes, I know what you're doing. You're pitching your two worst ones first. Now go ahead. Give me your best idea. I had no idea. I had nothing at all. But we were planning a trip to the Big Bend region, and I had a map there. And I said, well, how about me setting a contemporary series out in the Big Bend region of Texas? And it's pretty rugged out there. If your viewers don't know, it's pure desert. It's rough country, very dry. And she said, well, I like that idea. Who's your protagonist? Well, that was a word that I don't use very often, my hero or whatever. But I said, well, my protagonist is going to be, and I stalled. I had no idea. But I looked down, and there was a book that I was reading called One Ranger, and it was about Texas' most famous contemporary Texas Ranger, Joaquin Jackson. And so I said, well, how about a Texas Ranger? She thought that was great. And then she said, well, what's going to happen? And I had no idea, because I hadn't even thought about it. But I knew that there was a courthouse there that people went to see because it was an iconic courthouse. And so I said, well, how about and the TV's on, I got my TV on, and I looked over, and they were talking about terrorism, of course, on the news. And I said, well, how about if terrorists take over a courthouse in Big Bend, Texas, out in Alpine? How does that work? And she goes, well, that's great, but why are they taking over a courthouse in Big Bend? And again, I have no earthly idea. I said, well, and I said, maybe they want to prove that nothing is safe in this country. And they've made the mistake of taking over a courthouse in Texas, and you know what Texas is like. Everybody has a gun, is what people will say. And so I said, well, the town fights back, and our Texas Ranger who's in the courthouse is locked in with them, and they don't know he's there. And so the whole idea of the first book of the Sonny Hawke thriller series was off the cuff, just like that, and that became Hawke's Prey. And then she sold the series to Kensington Publishing, and Kensington said, well, this is good, let's give you a 3-book contract. And they said, well, Rev, what's your second book? And I have no earthly idea. But we'd been down there after that, so I'd seen the country, and I got an idea that the first one wasn't completely finished. The bad guys that had taken over the courthouse, of course, lose the battle and lose the war against the Texans. But at the same time, they're after Sonny to make him pay. And so
Right.
they ambush him while he's investigating a murder in Big Bend's National Park, an intentional murder that they killed 3 people and then allowed one to get away so that they could draw Sonny in. And so the Rangers down there, and then they ambush him. And at that point, it becomes an old-fashioned Western. They're out in the desert. Sonny's
Right.
on the run. The bad guys are after him. And that book came out last year, and it was nominated for a SPUR Award, and it won the SPUR Award from the Western Writers Association for the best mass market paperback in Westerns. And I realized that all of a sudden I am writing Westerns now. And so, that now I'm being marketed as a contemporary Western thriller writer. So that's how it's bizarre how it worked out, but that's how I backed into everything else in my life. Why not this too?
I was going to say, in addition to being an IT guy, you're a real planner, aren't you?
No plan. Well, that's the way I write. I don't even plan when I sit down. To write that second book, I just sat down and I had the murder happen, and I had no idea why those people were being shot. When I don't outline, I don't plan. It's like you're writing there and I'm seeing it come up on my screen.
Yeah, like a movie in your head. And so do you ever get to the end and realize that you're going to have to go back and change some of the movie because it's just not working? Or do you just push it till it pieces apart?
I push it till it breaks. Yeah, no, it actually works out. I have not had a problem to this point with things not working out. Somewhere in my subconscious, there's a little guy back there tapping it out and planning what's going to happen somewhere up down the road. The one I'm working on right now is working out just fine. I had to go back and tweak it just a little bit to put characters in the right place. But just for example, I was my Sonny Hawke's driving a car. He's back down in Mexico, down in Cajula, Mexico.
He just can't get enough trouble. He just can't.
No, he's getting in trouble. He goes and buys coffee. If he goes to Starbucks, he's going to get in a shootout. That's a problem. Even though Starbucks won't allow guns, and there somebody's going to have one around somewhere, and Sonny's going to run into it. But he's driving down this road, and it's nighttime, and he has someone in the car with him. And of course, I don't know what's happening. And he comes up to this dirt road that veers off, and he's following another car. Well, I thought they were going to veer off and do something else. And the next thing I know, it's an ambush by cartel members. So I just kind of follow it along, and I'm just as surprised as the readers of what happens. There's a twist in this one that I didn't see coming, and I can't wait to see how it's going to work out at the end. This may be one of those things where you're talking about that little end out there that's going to be dangling. I hope it wraps up, because if it doesn't, I'm going to have to go strip about half the plot out to see what I can do to fix it.
But isn't that the most fun, though, when something takes you by surprise and it just feels so good? You're just like, yes, yes, yes. And you just follow it. You chase it down the page.
You chase it down the page. And when it all ties together at the end, you sit back and you go, yeah, I that's what was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen.
You almost can't take credit for it as a writer, because it's like you're saying, you're watching it on the screen or it's playing in your head and you're just scribing. You're just, it's like, wow, somebody's telling me the story from another world or something.
That's exactly how it is. It's just like I'm reading it for the first time. And of course, how we all are. We read and reread and edit and go back and change it so many times. But that first time is fresh and it's new, and it's fun when you get to. I never expected that in this new career here. I didn't know that was going to happen.
So tell me about your past career. What the leap from old Reavis to new Reavis? Oh,
well, the old Reavis was I'm just retired in 2011. Just retired. That's been a long time, hasn't it? I retired in 2011 from a 35-year career in public education. I taught school for 10 years, and then I moved into administration, and I was in the communications public relations department of the 9th or 10th largest school district in the state of Texas at the time. And
wow.
So we had a lot going on. I was the guy that was going on camera when things went bad, or I was trying to promote the school district when things were going good. And so it was a great career. I retired from there. After I was the director of communications for the last 4 years before I retired. But during all that time, I'd always wanted to be a writer. Like all of us writers, we always had that itch to write. And I had that for years. I was trying to get published, couldn't get anybody to pay attention to me. The stack of rejection slips. You may not have had it, but I had a stack of rejection slips as tall as my wife. And so I wasn't getting anywhere, but I decided I was going to try to write newspaper columns. And I jotted a newspaper column down one day while I was in one of those meetings that I didn't need to be at, but I was required to be there anyway. And I was bored, and a lady sitting next to me was writing, and I said, well, you're not taking notes. I know that this is not what we're not supposed to be here other than just to occupy chairs. And she said, well, I'm writing a newspaper column. And I said, well, congratulations. I didn't know you were a columnist. She says, I'm not. She said, but from all the crap I'm seeing in the newspapers, anybody can write. And I said, no, it doesn't work that way. It's hard to get in. She goes, well, I'm going to get published. I said, I've been trying to be published for years. And she says, well, I'll make it before you do. And that kind of made me mad. And so I wrote my first newspaper column and sent it to the hometown paper where all my folks are from up in Paris, Texas, and sent it by snail mail. Remember those days when you type a manuscript? This was 1988. I typed it up and printed it on a tractor drive. I don't know if you remember those old tractor drives. Oh, it was terrible. And I mailed it to them, and they called me 2 days later and bought the column, and then gave me a contract to be their outdoor humor columnist in the Paris News. And from there, it expanded. At one time, I was in over 50 newspapers in the state of Texas doing a syndicated newspaper column. And I'm still writing for the Paris News today after all 31 years now. Yeah. So it's awesome. It's been a long time still doing that in magazines, but that was my springboard into writing the novel. Beginning to be a novel writer, an author.
And your Red River books were set closer to that area, right? They were more towards northeast Texas.
They are, yeah. Exactly. Northeast Texas, up on the Red River, north of Paris, Texas, and that river bottom area up in there, the border area. But I said the first book was set in 1964, so they're historical mystery thrillers. And they follow a family up there that's based on my granddad, who was a constable back in the 60s and 70s. Well, he'd been a constable for years. And so I heard those old stories growing up at the store, the old country store. That was a precursor to Facebook. Everybody go to the store and get their information. You don't do that anymore because they're all gone now. But I would hear the stories up there and took all those stories and wove them into the first few books. And now we're 7 books into the Red River series and talking about an 8th book. Hopefully that's going to come up soon. So, that series has been good to me also.
Well, I love that. I'm not surprised about that whole outdoor humorous thing, because one of the things that I loved most about the Sonny Hawke in HAWKE'S War was your really very vivid, powerful descriptions of the Big Bend area. And you and I were talking before we got on that Big Bend can be so inhospitable and so a character itself. It determines the outcome as much as a bad guy does. And I loved that. So now I'm not surprised to hear about that background.
Well, thank you. Any craftsmanship toward describing the area, the land and the country, a lot of it I have to give to a gentleman that I consider a friend. I haven't met. We've talked on the phone. I've interviewed him, Mr. James Lee Burke. His descriptions have stuck with me through the years. And so I kind of learned part of that craft from reading Mr. Burke's work.
I loved it. I really did. And I also loved, and I'm blanking out on her name now that we're sitting here talking. You had a female, really badass Hispanic woman in the book that had a male partner. Why can't I remember her name? But I loved
Yolanda Rodriguez.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Oh my gosh, my gray matter is betraying me. But I loved her. She had so much spunk, and it was a really, really fun book. So for you guys that haven't read it yet, you would be picking up a SPUR Award winning book. And speaking of the SPUR Award, are you going to be going to pick it up in person next month to Western Writers? I
will. I'm going to Tucson and joining a lot of outstanding Western writers out there. This will be the first time that I just recently joined Western Writers, since now I write contemporary Westerns. So we're going to go down there. My wife and I are going to go down and accept that award and kick around that part of the country and see some old friends that are part of that association and meet some new friends. Yeah, that's got to be a kick. The Tucson area is beautiful too. So, and a great place to get ideas for contemporary Westerns. It is. And we're gonna go down to Old Tombstone. We've been there before. I want to go down and see Tombstone again, walk the streets. And then I have this after the the convention, we're going up to Scottsdale. I'm doing a signing up there at the Poison Pen Bookstore on the day after and don't ask me the dates because I can't remember it right offhand, but we're going to be up there right after the convention and do a signing up there and then head back here toward Texas where it's going to be nice and hot and humid.
Yeah, nice and hot and humid. And you're up there in that Dallas area where it is humid. Oh, yuck. I can't say much. When we're in Texas, we're near Brenham, and it is 1,000% humidity, which is.
Well, yeah, you understand when you look outside and you can see the moisture in the air. And that's what it's like today. Yeah.
Exactly, which is why we come up here for the summer, as I'm looking out on 10 inches of snow. Summer? What's happened?
Well, I got snowed out of Yellowstone one time in July.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're in the mountains, you have to be prepared at all times up there, as you well know.
You really do. When my husband, who's from the Virgin Islands, first came up here with me, the first trip that I brought him up here, because I grew up in this area as a kid, but I took for granted that, you know, I always had someone looking out for my preparation. Coming back as an adult with no one to pack my bag, so to speak, we have gotten into some scrapes where we're like, we're really bad Wyomingites. We're really bad. We're getting better. We do a lot of backcountry trail riding and hiking and stuff, and you realize, you know, you're not going to see anybody for a few days. You really do have to be responsible for your own safety. And it can be anything. It can be snowing in July. And the place that we have up here is an old B&B up on the face of the mountain. And they've had snow every month of the year here. So, you know, it's fun. It's very Western.
How's the fishing up there?
Fishing is wonderful. It's wonderful. You've been up to this area, right?
Oh, I spent a lot of time up in Wyoming. Back in my previous life, I was in the summers when I wasn't working. I was acting as a freelance photographer and doing landscape photography, and so I was up there doing that and always fishing up in from where you are all the way up to the Yellowstone, the Tetons, and
absolutely
Wind River Range. I love all that area up there. And if I can get up there with a fly rod anytime soon, I'm gonna get a few lures wet. I can tell you, get some flies out there.
Well, hopefully you'll get some chance to do something fun like this summer, and not just all collecting awards and going to do book signings. That sounds like such hard work.
Well, it is such hard work, you know. And honestly, this is the first time I've won an award for the Red River series, and I'm really looking forward to standing in front of that group and accepting that award in front of people that I've read over the years. You know, that's the cool thing about being a writer. I think you understand. Yeah, you read these folks, and then all of a sudden you get to meet them and know what they're really like, and become friends with some of them, and you know, and speaking acquaintances with others. It's just it's a wonderful life, and it's fun.
Yeah. I always say that I love writing the books. I love people reading my books, but I really love meeting the other authors. And that's the whole reason this podcast started, was because I really love meeting the people that I read. I like to reach out and say, hey, I read your book, you know, come be on my show so that we can get to know each other. It's the very, very best. And to that end, thank you for being on the show. I've enjoyed reading HAWKE'S War, and I look forward. I'm actually going to circle back and try Red River Mystery, because I hadn't read one. And keep posting those funny Facebook posts. I'm following you on Facebook now, and you make me laugh.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Facebook is fun, and I meet a lot of people out there. We do the old timey word of the week, or some things that just pop in my head. So we have a good time with it.
Yep, it's a great thing. It's like it's like you said, it's like the old general store. It's even in some ways like your own personal newspaper column. You get that kind of ability to write your 300 words and see how people react. So if people want to find out more about Reavis Z Wortham, your website is
www.reaviszwortham.com. It's REAVIS, the letter Z, Wortham, WORTHAM.com. And you can find me. I have 2 Facebook pages. I have a personal page that gets most of the action right now, and there's an author page you can like. So come out there and join both of them. And if you come to any writers conventions, look me up. I'll probably, me, Craig Johnson, and CJ Box, we all wear hats, and you'll recognize one of us.
Well, they've all been on the show now. I've got all three of you at this point. So for those of you out there that haven't read HAWKE'S War, go give it a try, and also pop out to my website where you can see the upcoming shows and get ready to participate in a meaningful, intellectual way by having read the books ahead of time. But even if you haven't, just read them after. Reavis, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been fun.
It's been my pleasure, Pamela. Thank you for wading through all the technical difficulties to get me here. I sure appreciate it.
You're sure welcome. This has been a solely owned and copyrighted production of Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, produced by the one and only awesome Pam Stack. I appreciate all of you being here. Tune in anytime. We'll be Wyoming, Texas, wherever, somewhere exciting to talk from. And if you would, please go out and read a good book this week. I think I will. Bye, Reavis.
Thanks, Pam. Appreciate it.